All right. Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope everyone enjoyed last week's class, me showing all the blood work that I had. But today, what we're going to do is something pretty special, which I thought would be a great idea. I really don't see this a lot online, really, but I feel that the best thing we're going to do today is show you how to create a meal plan for weight loss. Okay. Like I want to show you from scratch how to do this. And it's pretty simple when it comes to creating meal plans. You probably already know like the simplistic rules when it comes to building a meal plan. One of them is going to be you have to be in a calorie deficit. So that means you have to be burning more calories than what you're actually consuming. Okay. Now, the key is what is those calories? Like, how do I find out how many calories that I'm supposed to be eating so I can adhere a calorie deficit? That's the problem that a lot of people don't understand is how they can get that calorie intake, all right, or what calorie they should be consuming to adhere to that. So let's go ahead and address that immediately. So the first thing you want to do when it comes down to finding out your calories is this. Number one, you want to have your body weight. Okay. And it's not as simple because we're going to go deep with this. First, you want your body weight, and then you want to times it or multiply it about around like 10. Okay. So for example, if you're like 150 pounds, then you just multiply that by 10 and you get 1500 calories. Now, that's the easiest way to get your total calorie intake. But let's say you're 300 pounds, you're morbidly obese, you have 46% body fat. How do you get the calories from there? If you times 300 by 10, what's that going to give you? 3,000 calories. Now, someone with 46% body fat and they're very sedentary, they won't be able to burn 3,000 calories and lose weight. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's just not because they're sedentary. They're not burning those calories, and that formula literally goes to trash, right? So how do I really figure out like that part there? So the next best thing is you want to figure out the lean body mass. Okay, that's what you want to do is figure out the lean body mass. So how do I do that? So to figure out the lean body mass, the first thing you really need to know is your weight and your body fat percentage. That's going to be the most significant part when it comes down to all of this: weight and body fat percentage. So let's say someone is 300 pounds. Okay. um Shoot, let me try to find a calculator. I got all my devices on record right now, but let me see if I can find a calculator somewhere. um do I think I could use this right here. Just gonna put in online calculator. All right. So, and what I'm going to do is for some of you guys that's on the YouTube, because if you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, you can actually see everything that I'm doing. So if you want to log in from Instagram or TikTok and go to like the YouTube live, you'll be able to see everything that I'm doing like step by step. But for example, what we're going to do is take 300, right? And you're going to times it by your body fat, multiply. Okay. So to multiply that, you have to turn the body fat percentage into a decimal. So simple math. So to make that into a decimal, let's say we're using 46%. And I'm just going to take little notes because if I'm using this as an example, I don't want to get lost with you guys. All right. So that's going to be a decimal of 0.46, right? And then you're going to equal, that's 138 pounds. So that's telling me how much fat that's in the body. All right, that's fat mass. So for someone who's 300 pounds with 46% body fat, that's going to be about 138. Okay. So now we got the fat mass. So now what we're going to do is take that fat mass and then subtract it by the your normal weight, which is 300, right? So if we did that, then what we're going to do is take 300 and then subtract it by 138. So that's 162. All right. So now we have a lean mass of 162 pounds. All right. So if your lean mass is 162, then the next thing you're going to do is now we're going to use that as our actual weight. Okay. So to use that as our actual weight, now what we're going to do is multiply this by 10. All right. And that's our calories. That's our total calories. So the total calories is going to be 1620. So that's going to be 1,620 calories. Okay. So that's how you're going to figure out your total calories. Now, this can get a little bit more complex, and I'm going to go into it as well, because when I'm creating my programs for my students, for example, let me go ahead and unshare this. When I create my plans for my students, I usually have a range of calories, because when it comes to majority of the people that train with me within Body HD Fitness, the majority isn't really burning like a lot of calories anyway. Like, so for example, if we look inside, we could look at any type of nutritional facts label, especially here in America, anything, any type of food label. And what does it say on top? On top, it says the average American usually burns about 2,000 calories. Or it says something about like, the daily requirement is 2,000 calories. People are not burning 2,000 calories. You know what I'm saying? So that daily requirement that everyone's assumed that they should be consuming, they're not burning that. And if you're looking at other influencers, like I'm going to include myself, other fitness gurus, bodybuilders, marathon runners, cyclists, swimmers, and they're talking about, I lost weight with 2,000 calories. I lost weight at 2,500 calories. Look at me. Look at me. They're not saying that anything's wrong with that, but the only problem I feel when individuals do share their calories is that they're trying, sometimes it can get misconstrued that, oh, if they look like that and that's what they're doing to look lean and look like that, then I can. And there's many factors that can change that scenario, because first you have to look at their age. That's going to play a significant part. Number two, their normal activity level. If someone's losing fat with 2,000 calories or more, what are they doing on a normal day basis? They're not including these type of information in these 60, 90-second videos. They're just showing exactly what they did. They're showing what they eat. And then they're like, hey, comment down below meal plan if you want a meal plan like mine to lose weight. It's very salesy and marketing, but they're not really breaking it down to you when it comes down to people. Everybody's different metabolism. If you're living a sedentary lifestyle, you're not really working out as much. You're living a sedentary lifestyle, you're not working out as much. And then on top of that, let's say you're an older adult, your metabolism is probably very slow and you're not even burning the daily requirements that you normally see, which is 2,000. So what you have to do is truly understand that. Now, is there ways you can find out your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate? Yeah, there's ways you can figure it out. I mean, if you just need to get a watch. If you got the easiest way is just getting a watch. If you get a watch, it tracks what you burn on a daily basis, and this is going to give you your basal metabolic rate. That's it's probably the easiest. There's formulas out there, but I want to tell you the truth. The watch is probably the fastest way to figure it out. Okay, because it's going to track your heartbeat, it's going to track your steps, and it's going to tell you exactly how many calories you actually burned. Someone says it's just so hard. I'm just going to answer a question because some people are asking questions. One individual asks, it's just so hard to calculate how many calories a food has when you don't eat packaged foods. That's not true. What if you want to track the foods when it comes to the calories, then you want to use MyFitnessPal. Okay, that's how you're going to calculate. If you have MyFitnessPal, you just type in the foods that anything that's not in a package, you just type in the food like apple, banana, kiwi, spinach, things like that, and it's going to tell you exactly what those calories are. So there's apps out there that can tell you those calories, and you just need to do that. And with MyFitnessPal, it is free. They have a free trial actually that you can download the app. You try out the free trial, start scanning your foods, start typing in your foods, and that's the way you're going to be able to track your calories. Okay. But going back to here, let's go back to this 300-pound individual with 46% body fat and 1620. Now, with my students, I usually start them off somewhere between all the way down as low as 1,200 calories, okay? Probably all the way up to 1,800 calories for weight loss. That's my range for weight loss, because that's the, I'm telling you, from the majority of students that trains with me. And this is the individual that, they don't work out 5 to 6 days out of the week. They're probably working out 3 days out of the week, or maybe 1 day out of the week. They're not very active. They're living a very sedentary lifestyle. When it comes to their job is even very sedentary as well, because they're working in offices. They're probably like doctors, lawyers. They're not really getting a lot of steps in. They're traveling a lot. So these type of individuals aren't really burning this much calories. And the problem, what I usually see sometimes on social media is that most people try to tell you certain calorie levels are too dangerous, but this isn't true either, because it's about what types of foods you're actually incorporating into those calories. Because there's something called superfoods where you can get a lot of your micronutrients and the proper dietary fibers for you to be healthy in those deficits. Okay. The only difference between like a 1,200 or to 1,800 calorie deficit is really going to be based on the individual and the speed. So obviously, the lower it is, the faster results you're going to get. But as long as you're building the meal plan itself that's healthy, they're gaining a proper amount of dietary fiber, so it actually helps increase their metabolism, push food out of their body, be able to process that stuff. They're getting the proper amount of vitamins and minerals, and you're getting a proper amount of your macronutrients like your protein, carbs, and fats. As long as you're adhering to that, nothing's bad's going to happen. But you have to remember, with a calorie deficit is temporary. Okay, calories is only the deficit is only temporary. The main goal of a deficit is to lose fat. That's the main goal, right? Once you get there, then you go into more advanced dietings like reverse dieting and getting up to maintenance calories. But that's going to be a whole nother video. But if we're going back to here, let's say with this person who's 300 pounds, 46% body fat, and I'm just going to repeat what I did for us to get that to when I was taught, because I saw some people just logging in. Some people were saying that, hey, how do you get the calories? What we're going to do is multiply it by 10, okay? Because if you take 300 and multiply that by 10, it's going to be 3,000 calories. And like I said before, obviously, they're not going to be able to burn that many calories, okay? The only thing they want to do is you're going to go ahead and try to get their lean mass, especially for someone that's very overweight. So you take 300, you multiply it by their body fat percentage, which is 46%. So it'd be 300 times 0.46. That's going to give us about 138 pounds of fat. And then after that, you subtract that by you subtract it by 300. And then that's going to give you about 162 of lean body mass. And then you times that by 10. And then you have about 1620. Now, for me personally, I'll do 1620 for this individual, but this is for someone like, let's say they're scared, like let's say for a male, I would start them off with that. For a female, I'll probably start off a little bit lower, just because sometimes with males, they're so focused on the calorie number. I don't want to scare them off. So I'll give them 1620 so they could be comfortable. But it doesn't mean that I would keep them there. They'll lose fat for sure, but I wouldn't keep them there because I'm someone that's about speed and I want to try to get someone to their goals really fast, because I just don't want it to be too long or too slow, because in deficits, all deficit sucks. You're kind of restricted on particular foods that you can and cannot eat, because it's all about portion control. You should be eating healthier on a deficit, right? Because that's going to give you more volume and it's going to prevent you from like going over calories. Okay. So for a female, they usually don't have a bigger appetite. They're not that worried about calorie numbers. They're more on just the results, right? But I've put males, even males at a 1,300 calorie deficit, even 1,200 calorie deficits. They were completely full on those diets. They felt satiated, and it's like I said before, it's all based on how the foods are made, like how you actually what foods they're actually eating to be able to hit those calories. And that's why for most people they can't even fathom like, oh, that's going to kill you, you can't eat nothing. It's like, no, it's not about that person can't eat anything. It's just that you don't have the knowledge to build a plan that individual can have a lot of food from with those calories. Okay. So with that said, now the next step is to figure out the macronutrients. Okay. Because now we already have the calories. Now you want to make sure you're getting the proper macronutrients. The macronutrients are large nutrients. Macro means big, large nutrients for the body to function. Okay. So this is going to be your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fats. Now, there's different ways of setting it up. All right. There's so many ways of setting up the calorie ratio to partition it throughout those macros, right? My favorite is going to be for protein, 35% of those calories is going into protein. For carbs, 25% of it is going into carbohydrates. And then when it comes to fats, about 40%. So I'm going to repeat that again. When it comes to the ratio, how you partition those calories into macros, my personal favorite, there's no right or wrong. All right. It's just whatever you feel that you're going to stick to the best. My favorite when I give it out to my students and my clients is going to be 35% protein, 25% carbohydrates, 40% fats. And the reason I like using this ratio is because with a high protein diet, it's more thermogenic. So that means it's going to raise the metabolism and help the person burn fat faster. It's not like it's going to speed it up like a billion times or nothing. It's just a slight faster. That has a slight thermogenic effect. Okay. It's not like 90-day difference. Okay. It's just a small difference that's going to move the needle a little bit more. Okay. Then the reason I put the carbs low, like at 25%, is mostly because a lot of individuals are addicted to carbs. They're addicted to starches. They're starch junkies. They're consuming mostly a lot of cake, ice cream, a lot of heavily processed foods. That's junk. So by placing the carbohydrates at 25%, me as the coach who's designing the meal plan, I have to use foods that's lower in calories and more nutrient dense, which is actually going to make the client be able to consume more fruits and vegetables. All right. Because the fruits and the veggies is what has the most vitamins, minerals, and dietary fiber. Okay. And you want to hypernourish your body because this is what's going to heal the body, especially if you have a lot of inflammation, you have a lot of pain in your joints, all that stuff. You want to be able to hypernourish your body and get a lot of fiber into your body so it can clear out all that waste that's stuck in your colon. Okay. So and then also improves your gut microbiome. It's going to help improve your immunity, your immune system, because you're getting more access of fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Okay, so that's why I like doing that. And then with the fat being at 40%, the reason I like doing that is because when it comes down to the fat, you have to remember how calories are made. All right, not all calories are the same. So when it comes to fat calories, 1 gram of fat is about 9 grams of 9 calories. So 1 gram of fat is equal up to 9 calories. So it's more slow burning. Okay. It burns a lot slower. So if that individual is getting a little bit more fat within their diet, they're going to be, not just the fiber is going to help them keep that individual satiated, but what's going to keep them satiated is also that higher fat intake. Now, again, with this ratio, I'm not saying that this is the only way. There's multiple ways. If I want to do it more high carb, I can. I can lower the protein to 25%, take the protein, bring the protein lower, up the carbs, even lower my fats. And I can get the carbs up to 55% if I wanted to. And that individual will still lose weight, because the big role that actually helps with weight loss is the calories. All right, the calorie deficit. The second thing is going to be not just the calorie deficit, but the second thing is going to be consistency. How consistent can that person stick to it? And then lastly is going to be the ratio. Okay. So you want to make sure whatever ratio you decide to change that up. If you want something more high carb because you want to have more rice, you want to have more beans. All right. You don't want to put too much intake into the fat. You want to lower your protein. Maybe your goal isn't to build a lot of muscle. All right. Maybe you're a runner. You know what I'm saying? So if you're let's say you're a runner, you have skinny fat, right? Maybe a high carb diet would be more beneficial for you to adhere to, because for being on higher carbs, this is someone who's actually burning. They need more immediate energy, because carbohydrates is 1 gram of carb is 4 calories, right? So if someone who is very active and they're just skinny fat, but they want to be in a calorie deficit, but also continue to run, and they're burning a lot of calories already extremely fast, then maybe a higher calorie deficit diet, not high calorie, higher carb diet, or a high carb diet in a calorie deficit might be more beneficial. Okay. So I've used multiple different types of ratios, but the ratio I use the most is the 35, 25, 40. Okay. That's the one I use the most just for weight loss. And does that person stay in that ratio forever? No. Like, it changes throughout their journey, because let's say this 300-pound person who's 46% body fat starts becoming more active, right? Then we can start lowering the fat ratio. We could start taking 40 and bring it down to 35, maybe even down to 30%, and then start raising the carbohydrate ratio to 25, 30, and 35. And then maybe even keep the protein the same, or maybe even lower the protein, because that individual don't need that much protein for thermogenic effect. Right now, we're just focusing on building muscle. Hopefully that makes sense. But I'm just trying to say, nothing's like, when it comes to nutrition and exercise, nothing's like black and white. It's just like, what's the reason why you're doing it, and if you can adhere to it and be consistent to that plan for a long period of time, or until you reach the goal that you're trying to achieve. All right. Now let's get into how can we actually partition that, because there's math to that. And before I go into that, let me go ahead and check out some questions. We got someone says, how do you know if the high carb or high protein or high fat is working for fat loss? Well, again, and what is the best to try first? Okay, so for Sheila, the one to try first, I would personally say like there is a way. I'm trying to not like bust out the book, but there is a way to figure it out. Okay. In my matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and bust out that book. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. So the book is the book I'm going to show you is from the course I personally took to become a sport nutritionist. Okay. And it's through ISSA, International Science Sports Association. And they have like different characteristics of body types where you can figure out like which one you fit. But even if I show you this book, and even with the examples that they give you, it even tells you in the book, it's pretty much the same thing I'm telling you now. It's not exact, right? So you can pick the one that I use, and then see if that one works for you, and then change it up after a month. But at the end of the day, truthfully, the ratio doesn't really matter that much. You know what I'm saying? It's just the one that you feel that's going to work best for you, okay? And how you're actually expending that energy. So I'm going to go ahead and share it right now. So this is it. And for you guys on YouTube and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So hold on. Let me see if I can share this. Just give me a sec. All right. So here's the screen right here. All right. So when it comes to the screen, you guys, this is what I look at. So there's different body types, right? I think some of y'all already know this. So you have like the ectomorph, which is more of the lean body type. They're more like carbohydrate tolerant. They have a faster metabolism. These are your pretty much like your natural endurance athletes, like runners, soccer players, cyclists, swimmers. Okay. Then you have like the mesomorph, which is more bodybuilding type. These are your natural muscular guys, like really big dudes. These are your pretty much like your wrestlers, bodybuilders. This is more mesomorph. And then you have the endomorph, which is like the wide body, right? Wide body, thick bone type. These are like your strength athletes, right? People who does powerlifting. Your linebackers, like the guys who plays football, and they're the linebackers, like very big bone, wide frame type individuals. Okay. Now, out of those characteristics, this, if you see here, this is what's going to give you the ratio. All right. But the problem with the ratio, and for example, for the ectomorph, like the runner, like I was explaining, usually they're going to be more on the 25% protein, 55% carbs, 20% fat. Because like I said before, since they're doing more endurance stuff and they need energy more efficiently, then they need the carbs. It just makes sense when you kind of think about it. And then with the mesomorph, they need a balance. Like this is your bodybuilder, so they need more of a balance. So it's going to be like 30% protein, 40% carbs, 30% fat. And then you have your endomorphs, and that's the one I use, which is like the broad guys, which is 35% protein, 25% carbs, 40% fat. Now, the only problem here is that even though this book tells you and it's labeled what ratio is for each body type, it's not black and white. And the book tells you that. It tells you that in the top of the context. And I could read it for you guys as well. I'm going to read it exactly what it says. It says individualization, step 2, macronutrient split. So it says beyond calorie recommendations that table 13.2 states will help your clients determine the ideal starting macronutrient percentage for different body types. To use the table simply choose the client's body type and goal set. From there, it's easy to calculate the recommended percentage of the protein, carbs, and fat. But it's important to note that while some individuals can be classified as a specific body type, right? Like, for example, the marathon runner is the ectomorph, the competitive bodybuilder is a mesomorph, the heavyweight powerlifter is the endomorph. Other individuals may naturally fall between different categories. So, you know what I'm saying? So, like, and let me even read more. Therefore, it's possible for a client to be a genetic ectomesomorph, like athletic looking, yet on the thin side, especially in the limb, or a genetic endomesomorph, heavily muscled, yet carrying extra body fat around the midsection, right? It's possible that a client's lifestyle has altered their natural somatic type to produce a hybrid type. For example, your client could be genetic ectomorph or endomorph that has exercised and eaten well for years and now resembles a mesomorph. On the other side of the spectrum, your client might be an ecto or a mesomorph that has developed poor insulin sensitivity and carbohydrate tolerance due to the years of inactivity and poor food choices, now resembles a mixture of the original type that the ectomorphic type is. So to really explain that more simple, right? To break that down so everyone can understand, pretty much, like I said, if you're like an ectomorph who's supposed to be consuming high carbohydrates, right? This will be like this ratio that I'm showing would be really for the elite athlete, like someone who's already active. You know what I'm saying? Someone who's already active, they have a fast metabolism. So if I'm looking at this chart, yeah, and if I'm reading the characteristics, it says thyroid dominant, fast metabolic rate, high sympathetic nervous system activity, higher carbohydrate tolerant. And then their goal is to build muscle strength, especially in the limbs, and then maintain body weight and strength during the high volume endurance exercises, then that will fall for that individual. But like the book said, some people can be a hybrid type, because here's the rule of thumb. Just because you have something called genetics that explains what type of body type you are, 80% can change your body type, right? Because of your environment, of what you do on a normal day basis. So if you're like, I'm a natural ectomorph, like I might not look like it, but I'm a natural ectomorph. I am built for doing long endurance exercises. Like I'm built to be able to run and do marathons and stuff. But the reason I have a lot of muscle is because I train in the gym. I lift a lot of weights. So, and then how I eat like a mesomorph, but also a little bit like an ectomorph, because I do have a high carb diet because I'm vegan, but I also do cardio and I train and lift weights. So you know what I'm saying? So this is on a positive note. But on a negative note, let's say we have a natural ectomorph who's skinny, but let's say they're skinny fat. So if we're looking at this, they would be more like on the ecto-meso or ecto-endo. You know what I'm saying? Like on two polar opposite ends, because they're not running. They're eating a bunch of garbage. You know, their ratio of their macros is all out of whack. So that means they're a lot of things that should be happening is not happening. Like they're more insulin dominant. They have a slow metabolic rate. They're low sympathetic nervous system, low carb tolerant. See what I'm saying? So this is when, and then if we look at the typical goals, right? It says lose body fat, especially in the central region, abdominal, lower back. So if you're looking at this chart, and this is something, I don't look at it anymore, but like this is something that I figured out. If I'm looking at this chart and you see there's three blocks. You have your physical activity, which is like your body type. You have your characteristics of the body type, then typical goals. I'll always say 2 out of 3. So if you're ectomorph, but then 2 out of the 3 is resembling the endomorph. What does that mean? More likely, I'm going to use the 35, 25, 40. And like I said before, going right back to the beginning, even before I even busted out the book, it's going to be mostly, like I said in the book, that's why I use mostly this ratio, because a lot of people fall where in that category, majority. It's really rare if I get someone who's already an elite athlete and they're just like, I just want to build muscle. Like they're already ripped, ready to go, and they're like, I want to build muscle. Do I get people who want to build muscle? Yeah, of course. But majority of people isn't fit, and it makes sense. It's just because like 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. You know what I'm saying? So what does that mean? 70% of Americans is definitely going to fall within that weight loss category when it comes to characteristics. And then also they're going to fall into their goals when it comes to weight loss. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't matter which physical characteristics they're in. If they're ectomorph by nature, mesomorph by nature, or an endomorph by nature, those other 2 characteristics are still the same. See, so hopefully that made sense. And then someone else said, let me just go down a little bit more. All right, and no questions. I'm just want to check up on some questions real fast. All right, someone says 35% protein with plants seems hard. Are protein shakes okay? Yeah, I mean you could do protein shakes, but it's really not as hard that you think. Because you have to remember, 35% of the protein will be different for everybody, because it depends on the calories, which we haven't even dug into yet, right? So it's a percentage. So depending on how many calories you're consuming, that will determine how hard it is and how easy it is. Now I'm doing about 2,800, more like 2,900 calories per day. And so my percentage of protein, I believe it's around 30%, maybe even a little bit lower, but I'm only getting about 185, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. I think what's hard for me is just getting all the carbs in, because I just came off of a deficit because I was doing bodybuilding competitions. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing a reverse diet, but just trying to get more carbs in, I feel that's a little bit hard, because I'm doing about 400 grams of carbs a day. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a little bit harder versus the protein, because the protein, I'll get that through the beans, through the rice, through mostly from a lot of the carbohydrates that are hybrid type foods. Like they're high in carbs, but they have some protein in it. So like black beans, a cup of black beans is about 40 grams of carbs, but it also has about 20 grams of protein. So it's easy to get it. So it really determines on the total calorie intake that will determine how hard to get. Okay. And let me just see any more questions before I continue, and then really dig deep into that breakdown. Yeah, and I'm just going to state this: like some people are commenting saying like this diet's better, like Mediterranean diet and all this stuff. I mean, first of all, that's not even the conversation here. Like I just want to go ahead and state that out. That's not the conversation. The conversation that we're having is how to make a meal plan. Now I'm vegan, so it doesn't matter what diet you're doing, as long as you actually adhere to it and it's actually healthy for you. Because you could be on a Mediterranean diet, but I know for a fact, as a vegan, I can make my vegan diet a lot healthier than a Mediterranean diet. It's all about how you build and what you're actually consuming within that diet, not just the diet type. Okay. Now, if you like to eat fish or something like that, that's okay. But to like try to say like what's better and what's not, it's really going to depend what type of food you actually eat consistently every single day. Okay. And then someone else says how to remove or target visceral fat to lower your BMI from 33 to 19. All right. So visceral fat is like the fat that's inside within the organs. So it kind of goes back all the way to the beginning of this class, calorie deficit. You can't pinpoint how you lose fat. You just need to lose fat. That's it. It's pretty simple when it comes to that shit. You know, like if you need to lose fat, and you got a lot of visceral fat, like a lot of fat within your organs, that means you're just fat. You know, you have a high body fat percentage. So you have to lose the fat in general. You just have to be in a deficit and be consistent with it to lose the fat. And the fat will start dissipating from the skin, within the organs, is overall. So when we're looking at body fat percentage, we're not focused on the fat outside your body with outside the muscle and the fat inside the organs. We're talking about fat overall. All right. Now how, if you want to go deeper into that, you can get like a DEXA scan, and it will really break that down for you so you can see. But I think it's that type of information is really like what they say for your information, like FYI, you know what I'm saying? But it's not irrelevant, because as long as you get your body fat at a healthy place, then automatically you're going to have low visceral fat. You know what I'm saying? It's this is how it is. I'm not trying to like say the question is dumb or anything, but I'm just speaking facts. Okay. And then let's go down some more. And then let's see. Yeah, I think that's it. All right. So let's go ahead and let's go. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and break down the ratio. Okay. So now we have the calories and the ratio. So to break down the ratio, we're going to do it again. All right. We're going to bust out our online calculator, and let me go ahead and share screens. And I can't share screens for everybody, like people on TikTok, people on Instagram. I can't share screens. I tried doing this in the past, and it's too much stuff going on, right? So if you want to see like what I'm doing, like how I'm sharing the screens, please check in onto like YouTube, Instagram. Oh, sorry, not Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and those lives are there. Okay, you could just switch your social media platform and just go to those platforms, look me up, and you'll see me sharing screens. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and take our calories, which we have, which is 1620, and then we're going to multiply it, right? We're going to do our protein first by 0.35, right? Because we're going to take the percentage and make it into a decimal. Simple math, okay? This is like third grade math. Now we're going to do that, and then we have 567, all right? So that number that you see, the 567, that's the calories, all right? So 35% of 1620 is 567. So that's how many calories you're going to be consuming in when it comes to protein. Now, to translate it into grams, right? Because that's the next step, is to translate that into grams. Remember, for protein, it's 4 calories that equals up to 1 gram of protein. All right, so I repeat that again. 4 calories equals 1 gram of protein. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide 567 by 4. And that's going to give us 141.75. Now, I like to estimate and round up those numbers, right? So I'm going to say it's about 142. So now we have the actual macro for our protein. So our protein is 142 grams of protein for this 300-pound person. So when you see things about like online about, oh, but I thought the person's supposed to be eating 1 gram per body weight and all that stuff. This isn't for everybody, and it's not for weight loss either. You know what I mean? Like this is for this rule of thumb really came out when it comes to bodybuilders, like people and very like strength type athletes. And a lot of people like taking this protein scientific method and applying it for athletes and applying it for the regular lifestyle individual. You don't need that much protein. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, it's all calories. You don't need that much protein, especially if you're sedentary. All right. So for that 300-pound person, and we already saw the lean body mass, which was 162, They don't need to be consuming 162 grams of protein. Man, I could do it. I could set up the ratios and do it that way, but it's not necessary. And especially if someone's not that active, they're 300 pounds, they're sedentary, they're not, and they're in a deficit, so they're not going to be building a lot of muscle anyway. The reason for protein is for amino acids to repair muscle tissue. That's the primary purpose. Like I said, protein does give some thermogenic effects, but you don't need to bring it that high. And there's some consequences with high protein diets. All right. There is consequences, especially depending on what type of foods you're eating. It could raise up your IGF-1 levels. All right. You don't want that to happen because that can lead to a lot of health related issues. Okay. It could put a lot of taxation on your colon. Again, it depends on what you're eating. All right. If you're eating a lot of processed meat, a lot of red meat, things like that, that could put pressure on your colon. All right. So you don't need to be consuming all this protein. Everyone's heavily obsessed with the protein intake. I say, if you're in a deficit, don't be obsessed with protein intake. Be more obsessed with your fiber intake. That's what you need to be consuming and what you need to be hyper focusing on more, not protein, on fiber. Okay. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and do the carbs. Now, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do 1620, right? And then we're going to multiply that by 0.25, because remember, with the ratio, we have the carbohydrate ratio at 25%. So we're going to turn that percentage into a decimal, and then we're going to multiply it, right? That's going to give us about 405. So 405 out of 400, that's our calorie intake. So out of 1620, out of 1,620 calories, 405 calories will be 25% of that. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply this by 4, because 1 gram of carb equals up to 4 grams. Well, yeah, 4 calories, right? So with that said, our carb intake is going to be 101.25. So again, I like to estimate. So that's about 101 gram of carbs. And then the last thing we're going to do is go right into the fats, right? So like I said before, we're going to do 1620. We're going to go ahead and multiply this by 0.40, because that's the ratio we're using, 40% fats. That's going to equal up to 648. So that's 648 calories. And then we want to go ahead and translate that into grams of fat. And like I said before, 1 gram of fat is equal to what? 9 grams. Well, I keep saying grams, 9 calories. All right. So that's going to be 72. All right. So now we have our calories for the deficit, 1620. We have our protein, which is about 142 grams. We have our carbs, which is 101 grams. And then we have our fats for 72 grams. And then once you have that, the next thing you want to do is definitely use like a food application like MyFitnessPal or something like that to track that. And you want to go ahead and pay for it. You know, a lot of people online says, oh, MyFitnessPal is free. It's not free, man. Like it's only free for like a month or a week or something like that, right? And then for you to actually use the full features, you have to pay, right? So you're trying to lose fat. I think a $50 investment for 1 year is pretty good to use an application that's going to track your calories. So once you pay for the app, then you can input your macronutrients into MyFitnessPal. All right. And once you do that, let me go ahead and stop sharing. Once you do that, you plug in your macros, then it's automatically going to calculate the calories, and then you just adhere to that. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and end it here, because the next step when it comes to this meal plan is to build the foods. Okay. So I'm going to make part 2 next week. But like I said, the next plan is the foods, because if you're like, oh man, 1620, how do I get the protein? How do I get the carbs? How do you get fat? How do I make sure I'm getting all the dietary vitamins and minerals that I need? How do I make sure I'm getting the dietary fiber that I need? How do I do all of this? I'm going to go ahead and show you that in the next class. class, okay, with the foods, because that's going to be the most important part there. Because anyone can hit 1620 calories if you're just eating what you want, right? But the thing is can you adhere to that and stay there? So if you're eating a bunch of McDonald's and Burger King, then eating a bunch of trash and sodas and stuff like that, can you adhere 1620? Because there's people out there that make claims saying that they lost weight eating McDonald's every day, and it's true. But I always say, for those individuals who put that to the test, the reason they were able to adhere it wasn't because of the quality of the food that they're eating, is because they had an agenda to prove something to the audience, and it's just a marketing scheme. When it comes to the normal day, you're not sitting around making videos to get a bunch of likes to do something that's different, to prove the audience wrong. What you're doing is, you're a normal person. You have a family, you have kids, you have friends that you might want to go out and stuff. You're not eating McDonald's every single day to lose weight. You're going to go out and eat. You want to improve your health. You know what I'm saying? You have a life. You work at different jobs and stuff like that. The only agenda that you personally have is probably just to improve your health, lose weight, and then be able to eat normal again and keep the fat away. You know what I'm saying? Not get any type of fat regain when you want to eat particular different types of foods, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's what we're going to do in next week's class, is definitely show you how to do that. But with that said, let me see if there's any other questions before I let everyone go. Someone asked, why do I have swords? The swords is just trophies. That's all it is. There's trophies from bodybuilding. And then someone asked, how do I lose weight in certain areas? You can't. You just have to be in the deficit. That's based on your genetics. Is how you actually hold fat on your body is really based on genetics, but you can't pinpoint fat. Let me just check Instagram real quick. Yeah, I think that is it. And let me check YouTube real quick. All right, someone did say, what's your advice for someone who's skinny fat? Well, I kind of already talked about that, about the ratios. And then, yeah, I think that is it. Yeah, that's it. So hopefully this class was very helpful, and I'll talk to y'all next week. Okay, just remember, I have these live classes every weekend. Every week, every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I'm on pretty much every platform except X. But you can see the classes on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, the Instagram lives, and TikTok. But I highly recommend that if you want to see like me sharing screens, to log into either Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, because that's where I'm able to share the screens, not on the other platforms. Okay, just so the class can be real smooth and easy. Okay, versus me just dealing with a bunch of tech stuff. I literally have like 4 screens in front of me right now. But with that said, I'll go ahead and let y'all go, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.